It's time to spill the tea. Hello!
You there, and welcome to A Spoonful of Theatre.
And this is another one of our special London Spill the Tea episodes where we have just watched a London West End show. So Sam, what did we watch this time?
We watched Guys and Dolls, but
We
it's
did.
Guys and Dolls with a twist.
It is. It was the immersive Guys and Dolls experience.
Yes, at the Bridge Theatre, which is a new theatre for me, right by Tower Bridge. So
We're
just-
currently looking at Tower Bridge.
and the Tower of London as well.
Yes, really beautiful.
So what did you think, TJ? First thoughts?
First thoughts. I thought it breathed new life into a classic. The immersive theatre. It's so different. And I've been to immersive theatre before, but immersive musicals are actually very rare. So this is really nice to experience, and I thought it was done very well. And I had a really good night. And I'm still kind of processing it, honestly. I mean, I've just walked out of the theatre. But I've got special memories of this show. This was the first ever West End show I watched back in 2005.
All right. When you were how old?
Almost 19 years ago, when I was 13. So watching it again, but obviously in a very different capacity. That was the original staging.
Yes.
And also I worked on it at youth theatre as well, and I've kind of been in and out of different songs from the show. So I've got a nice connection with the show. What's your first thought, Sam?
It's a lovely, light-hearted classic. I knew.
Do you know much of the show before?
The show, no.
Okay.
But I knew a couple of the songs.
Right.
Luck Be a Lady, I know from the Rat Pack. You know, Frank Sinatra
Yes, of course, yes.
would sing that song. And Rock the Boat.
Yes.
Was the show company on my cruise ship used to perform that one.
Yes.
Sorry, I haven't got the horn for the cruise ship. So I knew Rock the Boat very well, and to be fair, Rock the Boat absolutely stole the show. So I knew nothing of the story.
Yes.
But I know its popularity. I know its. That it's a classic, so it was a nice opportunity to actually watch it.
Yeah, I agree.
To a degree.
Okay,
I
so
have thoughts.
I think before we get to the immersion, because I think that's going to be the biggest thing. Let's talk. I mean, we're kind of this because it is really a classic. So it's originally produced in 1950. So we're talking a good 70 years,
Yes.
70 plus years old show. But for me, it's a show that. I mean, it is the kind of old. You've got to kind of look at it from the 50s lens of boy meets girl and that sort of thing. But it's not aged as badly as some musicals, I would argue. You know, some really, some of the way people talk to each other and things. It's not aged quite as much because I think because it lives in that gangster world.
Yes.
You kind of buy into the gangsteriness of it.
Yes.
So I think it does have a place for being staged in 2024. Actually, it was staged a few years ago, so it's been out a couple of years, I think, already.
Oh, has it?
This
I didn't know
version,
that.
yeah. So I think it's the putting it into that kind of immersive environment really drew you into it in a different way. Like, because I think maybe if it is in a traditional one, maybe it wouldn't pop as much. Maybe it wouldn't have been as popular, if it was just in a traditional staging, because it has been running for a while and it is very popular.
Yes.
And I genuinely did enjoy the show. Yeah.
I've got no context really, and yes, as an immersive experience, that was very interesting, very unique. I mean. The only immersive theatre experience I had was Four Horse Road.
Yes.
Back home in Singapore. And I was talking about that for days, wasn't I? I thought that was just a wonderful piece of theatre. And yes, I agree with you. An immersive musical. It took what we were talking about, Moulin Rouge and Juliet and Cabaret, where the experience has become a factor.
Yeah.
It's taken it to a whole new level.
Yes.
Yes. Now, what did you think of the cast?
The cast, to be honest, the cast were exactly what the cast should be.
Yes.
The show isn't. Those sort of shows don't wow necessarily in the same way that they used to back in the day. So, when you go watch a modern show and somebody's really belting their head off and things like that, it's a bit harder to come away and go, "Oh my God, that person was amazing." But everybody was amazing in their roles.
Yes,
so
I agree with
playing those classic characters, but also bringing a bit of modernness to Adelaide. Adelaide had that because the original, if you, I think, go watch the original movie. In the original, she's like, "It says here," and she's all very like ditzy girl. Whereas the portrayal of Adelaide here, that's maybe an example of how they've modernized it a little bit.
Yes.
She had guts.
She did.
Which that character initially wasn't portrayed like that.
Oh, right.
Adelaide really was the. Oh, I really like kind of nasally sound.
Yes.
And she really played her with a bit of balls and a bit of fire and fight back.
I must admit, all the women seem to be very empowered. It balanced the energy, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, that's not where it was before.
No.
But they didn't change anything in the script. They just portrayed them like that, and it didn't jar with the original intention, But I think that did help it bring it to a bit more timeless, you know what I mean? Because if they'd have played the weaker female characters, which those old musicals, did, it might not have been as palatable, today. So I did appreciate that. But overall, I think the cast was very strong. Huge ensemble that worked really nicely together. Some of the limitations of the staging meant the dancing was great, but it didn't. You can't do the.
It was confined.
It was confined because you can't do the huge spacing and things like that.
Yes.
So, but what they did in that space was very nice and energetic and engaging. And they worked very well together as an ensemble with lots of nice improvisation moments, which an immersive staging allows you to do and really connect with the audience. So I like that. What did you think of the cast?
The cast. The thing I noticed the most, and I mean this entirely positive, is the body positivity that was portrayed. There were some larger characters physically. And they did an amazing job.
Yeah.
It wasn't all skinny minis that can do splits and twirls and all beautiful looking actors and actresses.
There was diversity, and
there was
diversity in body shapes. There was diversity in age. There was diversity in ethnicity.
Yes.
And you, to be honest, you didn't. I mean, you're picking it up because you kind of were talking about it, but I didn't. It's not something you noticed. It was just like, this is realistic. This looks like New York in those times.
Yes, exactly.
So I think I agree with you that it's not necessarily and. Usually also this show, Adelaide, for example, in kind of a lot of previous productions, would have been your typical skinny mini white lady. But here they've made a beautiful, voluptuous, lady. So it's like, it works for the character. So I do love that, and I think the West End especially right now is valuing diversity in their casting, and you've seen that for the last few years, but productions like this really do bring that out, which is lovely.
Choreography I thought was great. Costumes were beautiful. Yes, but staging.
Okay, go on then. I feel like you've got a lot to say about this.
I do.
We might have a discussion here.
As you say, the immersion was a unique experience, and the police officers and the reason I say that, ladies and gentlemen, is because they were dressed up like New York police officers. They were very good at the crowd control, but my word, did it take you out of the moment, because you're being pushed back and you're in the dark and you don't want to trip over people's feet and things like that. And this is during wonderful numbers. I was completely taken out of Luck Be a Lady because we're being moved. And that I didn't like being taken out of the moment, and it happened a few times. So yeah, but there was a couple of moments, like the Havana party, for example, where the immersion really added to it.
Yeah.
You felt you were in the middle of that party. So I'm 50-50 on the immersion.
Did the fact you've just had to stand up for 3 hours also not help?
I mean, now the reason TJ says that is because we've been walking all over London today, and we raced to the theatre because we rushed our dinner and we were, ladies and gentlemen, Sam was running through London. Yes, my little legs are tired. I wouldn't have minded a seat, but I'm going to be fair here. I'm going to be fair in saying, is because I've not seen Guys and Dolls before, I wanted to enjoy every moment of the story. And being taken out of that was really jarring for me. Had I known Guys and Dolls before, had I seen it before, had I known the show inside out, I don't think it would have bothered me as much.
Okay.
So I will be fair.
Okay. For me, I'm coming at this from a creative perspective because the immersion and that sort of thing, this is honestly really up my alley in terms of directing. I often try and do things outside the box and, play with things. And I really loved what they did. There are elements, as you say, as an audience member, the audience experience, you are once you're trying to just focus in on something and then somebody does have to move you just logistically,
yes,
because a big truck is about to come up from the floor and lift you up if you don't move.
Yes.
I completely get why they have to do that. I think I get why they have to do that because you're in the middle of the number, you're in the middle of the show. However, for me, overall, I enjoyed the atmosphere.
Yes.
And I don't hope every show ends up like this, because actually I do like to sit down and immerse myself in the show sometimes. But it was really different, it was an experience, and I really applaud them for being brave. And I think overall, there's got to be a reason when you do something like that.
Yes.
And I think for me it was, because in that show there's a lot of crowd scenes, there's a lot of you're in the hot box, you're in New York streets, you're in the crap game. So if it was a very intimate show where there's a lot of scenes in a bedroom or in a living room, or it only works when you're in a show that is about crowds and is about ensemble.
Yes.
And I think it did add something. I'd be very interested to know, because we stood up for the show, what it was like from the audience, because there were some seats around the sides, up on levels looking in. I'd be very interested to see what happens when you are watching all of us get moved around in the space.
Yes.
I'd love to kind of see whether that impacted how that impacted their journey.
Yeah, did that also take them out of it as well?
Yeah, well, you're just like, why are these people distracting me from the show?
Yes, yeah.
But after all that, for me, I think it was just so different and so lovely, and I really did enjoy the restaging and the different look at it, and it was an experience that I think people should go and have a look at it, because I think it was a really interesting take.
Now then, ladies and gentlemen, as you probably know by now, when TJ and I see a show, we will always rate it by spoonfuls, the highest rating being, of course, 5. Now, TJ and I never share what spoonfuls we're going to give until the moment has come, and that moment is now. So on the count of 3, TJ, 1, 2, 3, 3. Oh!
This is a first.
This is. I'm lower than you.
You're lower than me for the first time.
Okay. As you once said in a previous review, I don't consider 3 a bad score. I think the show was good. It was light-hearted. It was fun. Some of the songs were brilliant, especially Rock the Boat. Just the immersion took me out of the story a couple of times, but I think that's me coming from the fact that I've never seen the show before.
Yep.
So yes, that's why I'm giving it a 3. But for you, TJ, a 4?
For me, I think this is why I love this podcast, because I'm really coming at it from an artistic point of view, and it fired all my artistic juices, and the creativity of the immersion just really inspired me, and I thought it really brought a fantastic level of not only the immersion, but the quality of the performance itself was good. I think one of the issues is, although they did a very good job with the older show, it still is a bit of an older show, so it doesn't quite spark to the kind of level that a more modern show would, because our appetites have changed, I suppose, over the years.
Yes.
But definitely a phenomenal version, and really good performances and direction, and I just loved the creativity from a director point of view. So yeah, I think that's why I love this podcast, because we've got the two different views there from both of us, but a really good overall show. Who's it for?
Who's it for? I would say I'm going to split this in 2. I'm going to say, if you're seeing it for the first time, book a seat.
Okay.
If you are familiar with the show, and you don't mind standing around for 3 hours and being moved around, then do the immersion.
I'm gonna disagree with you.
All right.
Because I was looking around and I saw so many, what I assume, and I don't mean this in a negative way, so many people, the general public who are watching the show, absolutely loving being so close to the action.
Yes, yes.
You're very rarely that close to the action when you go to the theatre. So actually, I think the immersion adds, because you feel so close to it that you wouldn't necessarily always feel like that for a lot of shows. So I think that is not a negative for general public. So I think anyone can go watch this and enjoy it, personally.
Fair enough. Now, my tea's gone cold, my fingers are cold, my toes gone cold. Can we get in the warm, please?
Absolutely.
So from us, it's cheerio, we'll be back soon.
And to everybody performing in theatre around the world, break a leg. Sorry, avoiding weirdos all the way home.